Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today I'm going over my June wrap up, and if you clicked on this video you already know what happened. I read 30 books in June. 30 books in 30 days. It's mind-boggling and exciting, and I'd been wanting to do it for so long. And then I randomly decided halfway through June that I was pretty close to having read a book every day for June, that I was like, I should just try it. You know, I'd been devouring dark romance and I was just like, there's a very small chance that I could pull this off. So I'm not going to talk about it and I'm just going to try it, and I did it, and it's super awesome. So I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in June. And obviously 30 books is a lot, so it's going to be a bit of a long one. Hopefully I can get through it. I'm not going to do it how I usually do my wrap-ups, is that in order that I read. I'm going to try to just section them off in chunks, and hopefully that makes it easier. And to get us started, I'm going to talk about my library book club for June. So our book club was the first Wednesday of June, and we read The Gifted School by Bruce Holsinger. I gave this book 3 stars, but the more that I think about it, I want to give it 2. So this book is basically about this group of parents and their children all being gifted in some way, whether that's really smart or they have their thing, you know? And so in their town there is going to be this new school called the Gifted School. Only 1,000 students across the entire, I think, state, county, will be admitted, and that includes every age. So it's not 1,000 students per grade level, it's 1,000 students in total. And so there's rigorous testing, and they have to build a portfolio, and these parents are kind of they're just so dumb. They're almost on the verge of being helicopter parents, where they're so invested in their children's schooling that it becomes less about the kids and more about them. There's one part where, okay, so one of the parents at one point says, it's not just about the kids anymore. And I was just like, was it ever? I literally wrote that in the book because this is my copy. And I was like, was it ever about the kids? And because these parents are so obsessed with it and they're terrible, their kids are affected and some of their kids are terrible, I just thought it was ridiculous. And so somebody, I think, told me that this book was similar to Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty, and it's not. The only way that it can be considered similar is because it's about rich white people. I don't even say rich. Some of them have money. Some of them are just middle class people. And their pushiness on their children. I feel so bad for a lot of these kids. It's interesting because one of the ladies in my book club, she reads nonfiction, and she says she doesn't like reading books that can't be realistic. And she was like, and even though this book is not realistic at all, I still really liked it. And I was like, you don't think this is realistic? Because I 100% can see this happening in real life. There's a twist at the end. One of the characters that they were all surprised by, and I was just like, why? This doesn't surprise me at all. This seems like a normal everyday life thing, and that just probably says something about the way that I grew up. But this book was not shocking at all to me. It was kind of just dumb. And what I thought would have made it better if it was a thriller, or if it was even kind of just more dramatic. There's one point where there are 2 twins, and one of the twins breaks his leg in a skiing accident, and he says his brother pushed him, and then there's at one point the twin who pushed him punches a hole in the wall, and this entire time I'm like, you know what, I bet you it's not even that twin, the one that's being blamed for anything. I bet you he's not doing a single thing. I bet you the other twin is doing it, and he's a little psychopath. And I was like, that would have made this book more interesting, but no, he just wanted more attention. And everything was neat and tidy at the end, and I just thought that was so stupid. I was like, this book was a waste of my time. I mean, it was interesting enough for me to read through the entire thing, but honestly, if I hadn't been reading it for book club, I probably would have DNF'd it. So I think I'm gonna lower this to a 2-star rating. The rest of my reading for June, besides one book, was either romance or graphic novels, so let's talk about the one book that wasn't, and that was 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. This book is, the setup for this book is that there's this man who works at a bookstore, and like years ago he had written a blog post, like the 8 Perfect Murders, basically just talking about 8 perfect murders and these mystery/thrillers that he thought were really great. And then years later comes to find that there's somebody who's murdering people in the same way that the list is, the list of the 8 perfect murders, which I thought the setup sounded really interesting. I was like, heck yes. I had a couple of issues with this book. First is that, and I get like that is kind of like the essence of this book, is it's going to do it, but it spoils all of the books that are mentioned in that 8 perfect murders list, which is really annoying. He talks about the ABC murders by Agatha Christie, which is one of my favorite Agatha Christie's books, but I also know that like it's probably one of her least read books. And it kind of made me upset because I'm like, now people aren't going to read it because you spoiled it. So that was one thing. Like, I get like, because of the way the book is, it kind of had to spoil them, but it was a little disappointing. And then also, about 20% into the book, I was like, he started talking about his wife, the main character, and I was like, why does this have to do with the book? And then, I'm sorry, I'm just going to spoil this book, so definitely skip. I'll try to put chapters in the description box and you can just skip through the rest of it if you don't want to be spoiled for this book. But basically his wife is a drug addict and she gets into contact with this man and he basically gets her addicted to drugs and she eventually dies because of it. And it turns out that the drug person who gave him the wife drugs, he dies because the husband goes on the internet and like swaps murders with this other dude and starts killing people, and then the other dude comes back and he's like, we had a connection. I'm killing all of these people on your list. And so you find out in the end that the husband did all of this for his wife, but throughout the book, he doesn't care a single thing about his wife. Like, he knows that she's having affairs and he's just like, whatever. Like, he knows that she's a drug addict and he's just like, whatever. And yet he does all of this because she dies? No, that doesn't make sense. He doesn't care about her. There's no way that he would commit all of these murders for her. So I was just like, no. So I gave that book 2 stars. This is one of the things that I'm finding about myself with thrillers. I have to have a character that I can root for, and I could not root for this character. He was utter trash. And it did not make sense, so 2 stars. I only gave it the 2 stars because the premise was intriguing. And if the last 80% of the book was written differently, I might have actually liked it. But I think, I don't know, I might read more of his books, who knows, but... Okay, next I'm going to talk about some fantasy romance that I read. Okay. Let's do the fantasy romance. The first book that I read, a lot of these books, I'm telling you, this was the month of reading a lot of YouTubers' favorite books or recommendations. Like, that's where I got the majority of these books from, okay? The first one I read was A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Catherine Moon. This one, I think Riley Marie did a Shop With Me ebook kind of thing, and that was one of the books that she picked, and I saw it was on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, why not? It's basically like Penny Dreadful Monsters, but romance. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. It was, I liked the world building of it, I guess, with these Penny Dreadful Monsters. Like, it was fine. Gave it 3 stars. Fantasy romance, I continued with the Lily Archer series. Faye's Captive. I read the second and the third book in this series. I gave the second and the third one 4 stars. I'm really liking the way that the series is going. I just really wish she hadn't separated them into like tiny little novellas. Like, honestly, if she had just wrapped it all up in like 2 or 3 full-length novels, like, it would have been fine. Like, it would have been okay, and I probably would have given it 5 stars, you know? I really like it. I like the world building. I do feel like it's lacking in development, just the way that it's written and separated into the little novellas, but I'm a sucker for like a fated mate type of romance, and that's what this is. So I really like it. It's basically about a girl who is kidnapped and taken to the Fey world as a changeling. And she finds out that she's the mate of the Winter King. He's the king of the Winter Kingdom, the Unseelie King. And it's basically just about them. And there's this king under the mountain or over the mountain or something who's like evil and killing a bunch of people. And he wants the girl. And I feel like it's going to end up him being her father or something. It's just like the vibe that I'm getting. That's not a spoiler because I don't know if that's true, but that's my question. I feel like she's going to end up being a fae and he's going to be her father and he wants to do evil things and wants her to be his sidekick or whatever. I don't know. That could be completely wrong, but that's just what I'm feeling at the moment. The other, I read The Midnight Bride by Katie Wilde. I gave this one 4 stars. I'm really liking also her series, her fantasy novella series. The next one's going to be a full-length novel, though. It's called The Deadlands. I'm really enjoying it because it's about just different fantasy stories that are happening in the same world. And this one was about a girl who is she's entered into this competition to retrieve an artifact from this faraway place, and she basically has to do it or her family and all of their people will die. So she's on her way to retrieve this artifact, and the male hero, he is charged to not let anyone get this artifact and give it to the king who wants it because he's evil, and if it's given to the wrong person, if it falls into the wrong hands, bad things will happen. So she needs it, but he's like, no. They end up getting married, you know, Midnight Bride. That's the title. You can kind of guess they get married at midnight for reasons. And I thought it was a short and sweet novella that I really liked. I liked the fantasy aspect of it. And I just really liked our main characters. So I gave it 4 stars. I also read Shift of Morals by Kate Webster. This is a paranormal novella. Paranormal romance novella, male romance, again the whole fated mate type of thing. The main character is he's the leader of the pack, the alpha male, and then the other main character, his family is destroyed and mauled by a wild animal monster type thing, and they don't know. And then years later, it's about like finding out what really happened and the romance. And this one I gave 3 stars just because I felt like the ending was a little too convenient, and I didn't love the fantasy world aspect of it. The development of like why these 2 characters were brought together, I thought it was a little too convenient and kind of strange, so didn't love that, but overall it was an okay novella. This one I will try to figure that out later, but this one is called High Moon by Katie Wilde. This was another paranormal romance with the werewolf aspect. I love werewolves. They're like my favorite paranormal type monster / creature. I've always loved them. Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Klaus is one of my all-time favorite books. Has the best werewolves in it. And the movie absolutely ruined it. But anywho, not talking about that. But again, I just love werewolves. And this one was about a werewolf who is basically trying to track down this monster or person who slaughtered his family. And he comes across this woman who had the same thing happen to her. Her family was also killed by this creature or person. And it's romance. They are trying to solve this mystery. I really liked it. It again was a little too long. I think it's interesting because on Goodreads it says it's a novella. It says it's 127 pages, and I was like, why is it taking me so long to read this book? And then I looked at the page count when I was reading it on Kindle Unlimited, and it was over 400 pages. So Goodreads was wrong about that, but whatever. I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, not the best one. I think it was too long. So yeah. Also, it had like a western cowboy aspect, which I'm not super into, so that was another reason that I was just like kind of meh about that part, but overall 3 stars. Now I'm going to kind of smush these kind of themes together, and I'm going to talk about science fiction slash horror romance. And the first one, this was a recommendation from Riley Ree. This was in her top favorite romances of all time video, and it's Transcendence by Shay Savage. This is a caveman romance. Yes, you heard that right, caveman romance. It sounds super strange. It actually kind of worked though. So it's basically a science fiction romance because the woman gets sucked back in time to prehistoric or whenever this caveman person was alive, and she basically gets stuck there, and he takes care of her, and they eventually fall in love, and it's beautiful. I gave this book 3 stars. It is completely except for the epilogue, it's in the perspective of the caveman, which is super strange because so there's no dialogue because he doesn't talk. And it's kind of like him interpreting or trying to interpret what she's trying to say to him. And why she does the things that she does. So I think it was really interesting. It was definitely a very interesting book to write, I'm sure, for Shay Savage. And it was adorable. I really liked the ending. It was cute. I can see why it's one of Riley Marie's favorite romances because it's so unique and it worked. Okay, and then I read a horror romance, which I've never read before, and it was kind of interesting. This was another of the books in Riley Marie's video where she did a ebook shop with me kind of thing, or an ebook book haul, and it's Diver's Heart by K.A. Knight. And if you're in the romance world of Kindle Unlimited, her most popular book, I think it's called Den of Thieves, and I tried to read that book, and oh my god, it is so messed up. I had to stop. I was like, I can't read this. This book was so interesting because it's Diver's Heart. It's about this girl in the very beginning. She rejects her fiance, or the man who is going to be her fiance, should she say yes. She rejects him because she's in love with the entire crew of, I think there's 4 of them. And so she's just like, I can't marry you because I love everyone. I think you can guess where the book is going. But, so, they're all divers, and she ends up, it's a couple of years later that the book takes place where she, has, I think she holds the world record for how long she can hold her breath. And they cave dive, which I think is super interesting, also terrifying. And this book is kind of like The Descent, if you've seen The Descent. Or there's also a movie called The Cave, where there are creatures in these submerged caves that horror, they kill people, they eat people and whatnot. So it was kind of like that, where they find this new cave system that they're paid to explore, and she ends up getting added to the team of the divers that she used to work with, and it's so much tension and then horror. And it's about them trying to get out of the caves. So it was really interesting. I loved the horror aspect because it's kind of too unbelievable for me to be really terrified about it. And the romance is kind of the reason actually why I didn't love this book, because every single steamy scene was exactly the same. I'm telling you, you want to talk about formulaic writing? Read this book, because every single scene, that happened, then that happened, then happened. It was just like a formula. It happened in the same order every single time. And I found that really annoying. Other than that, I probably would have given this book a higher rating. So there. Continuing with the science fiction romance, I took a deep dive into Ruby Dixon. I think her name is Mara from Books and Woe. She is constantly talking about her love for Ruby Dixon, and I had seen her books around Kindle Unlimited, but I'd never read any of them, and I was just like, you know what? I'm trying to read 30 books in 30 days, let's just go into this and do what we can. So I read the first 4 books in the Planet Barbarians series. You can kind of probably guess where I'm going with this. There are Planet Barbarians. Okay. So the setup of the first book, and kind of leading into the rest of them, is that this group of women are abducted by these aliens, and they're kind of in this cargo hold where the conditions are awful and their guards are awful, and if they make any noise they get raped. So that's trigger warning right there. There is a rape scene in the very beginning. I mean, it's not like in an in-depth, it's kind of like the perspective of the character that you're in is not the person who is getting raped, so you don't like, it's not in detail. Not that just doesn't make it any awful, but that happens. And then, so they're in this ship, and the ship crashes. Or I guess like something malfunctions on the ship and they have to land and drop the cargo, which is all of these human women. And so they are stranded on this ice planet, and the leader of the group of girls who they elect as their leader is sent out to find something. Whether that is help, food, water, something that will help them survive. And she comes across one of the Ice Planet Barbarians. But yeah, so romance, it's kind of, again, a little kind of like the fated mate kind of romance, if you want to call it that. It's more science-y than that, but these books are super fun. I think it's interesting because I learned while I was reading these that Ruby Dixon is a pseudonym for the actual author, and I don't know if people know who she actually is, but she's actually a best-selling author, and she writes under the name Ruby Dixon, so she can write basically alien smut, which I'm just like, it sounds like it would be a nice stress relief kind of thing because these books are so fun. I really like them. It's kind of nice to have this expectation that all of these books, they're not the same, but that they're going to end up the same way, where they end up together. And I like having, especially because like I started a new job, and at this point I was like in the most stressful part of my training, so it was really nice to have these books at the end of the day to kind of just like formulaic, I know what's gonna happen, I don't have to really, like, I could just shut my brain off and just read these books for fun. So it was really nice to have that, and I think that's why I really enjoyed them, and I'm going to keep reading the series. I think there's like 20 books in the series, and I'm like, heck yes. So I'm going to keep reading. Overall, I kind of gave most of them 3 stars. I think I gave the first one 4 stars just because I was just like, this is so unique, and I love it, and it's so random, and I'm sure there are plenty of haters of it, but I don't care. It was fun. Okay. I can't say that we're getting near the end. There's still a lot to go. I read Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I gave this book 3 stars. It's kind of about this actor who acts in this... people were saying it's kind of Game of Thrones. It's not. It's more of a Greek mythology retelling. And he acts in it, but everyone hates the way that the show is going, so there's a lot of fan fiction. So our heroine is a fan fiction writer, and she is also a plus-size character, and at some point she posts a picture of herself in a cosplay costume that she makes, and people are harassing her, calling her fat, and saying she's ugly and blah blah blah, because people are horrible and disgusting. And then the actor who's in the actual show sees this and is like, you're beautiful, let's go out to dinner. So they have dinner, and she's like, this is just like fake date, right? And he's just like, I kind of like you. So they start dating. You find, like, we know from the very beginning that they both are fan fiction writers and they're actually friends, but they don't know that, and that's kind of where the drama plays into it. I was kind of meh about this book. There are like excerpts of the fan fiction, which I thought was fun at some points, but some points I was like, I don't really care about this, and I skipped it. But yeah, I mean, it was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I felt like it was kind of bland. The romance was kind of bland. I think the most part I really liked the main character and how she was so, well, body positive about herself, although like she, like, obviously, and no matter how much self-esteem you have, words hurt, but how strong of a character she was and how she stood up for herself. So I really liked that about her, but other than that, this book was just a little too bland for me. But I think it also because I was in like such a dark romance phase at that point where I was just like, it's not dark, I need the drama. So moving on. I watched some videos from Mary, what's her channel name? More to Mary, I think. I'll try to put everything in the description box. And she reads a lot of dark romance. I think that's the majority of what she read, and I read a lot of her recommendations. First, I'll talk about the Fallen Men series. It is a motorcycle club romance series. I'm not too crazy about motorcycles, and the motorcycle club romance is kind of a weird thing to me, but whatever. It's a dark romance series and I kind of liked it. I read the first 3 books. I think I would say the first one was my favorite. The second one I really still liked. The third one I had a lot of issues with. So I read them kind of out of order. I read the second one, then the first one, then the third one. The first 3 are all about the same family that are in this motorcycle club. Basically, it's just about like romance and drama with a motorcycle club. And they all have like their own like romance taboo type situations. They're all kind of age gap romance, but only the second one was like a whoa. Kind of like, okay. The other 2 were just like, they weren't that bad. The first one was a student-teacher romance, which is kind of weird, but he was 18, so I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. I will say the third one was really disappointing because there were 2 incidents. One was a racial slur, the other one was a negative comment about someone of another race that were never addressed as being negative or bad parts. Like, I get like the people who said or did these things were like bad people, but that's no excuse to have these racial slurs / incidents in a book without having any type of like, I can't believe you said that, that's not okay type of thing. And then the second one was just completely unacceptable. She basically talks about this man who is like a mix of different ethnicities. I think he's an indigenous, I think like Philippine, maybe, I don't remember. It's been a while since I read it, but he was like a combination of a few different ethnicities, and she basically says he was beautiful even though he was this, this, and this. And I was just like, that's not okay. So I gave that book 2 stars, just because like the series, the drama, I love it, but honestly the romance was kind of meh, and those 2 incidents I was just like, no, that's not okay, not okay. So overall I really liked them, but that whole issue, that was the only time that I caught anything of the 3 books that I read. So I don't know, I might read the next one. I don't know, I might be out of that dark romance phase, so I might not want to read any more of them, but if I do, I'll let you know. Another recommendation I got from her was Credence by Penelope Douglas. I surprisingly liked this. This book is kind of super messed up in a variety of different ways. It's basically about a girl whose parents commit suicide in the very beginning. And she basically grew up without them because they were both actors, and she was kind of like alone and isolated all of her life, so she has a hard time connecting with people. And when her parents die, I think she's 17, about to turn 18, and her long lost step uncle calls her and is like, so your parents named me your legal guardian, but you can stay there if you want. I know you've got people to look after you, or you can come live with me for the summer, whatever you want to do. And she ends up going and living with him for the summer, and she basically has a relationship with him and his 2 sons. Not at the same time, and there is like a main romance in this book, but it was so interesting. I have to say, I really liked the drama of this book. I'm just like sucker for a drama this month. I just wanted all of the drama, all of the dark romance. I don't know that I would call this a dark romance, but no, I think I would. I would call it a dark romance. I mean, it's not the darkest of dark romance. Like, there's one on here that's super dark. This one's not super dark, but I would say it is a dark romance. So basically, she goes to live with her uncle, her step uncle, and his sons over the summer, and then ends up staying, or was it the summer or winter? I don't remember, but eventually they get like, every winter they get stuck at the cabin because he like lives in the middle of nowhere, like on the mountain, and he has this really nice cabin, and they all like basically get stuck there in the winter because like there's no way for them to get back to town because like blizzards, winter storms, they're kind of stuck there. So I mean, they're isolated. It's dark romance. I'm gonna leave it at that, okay? And I'm gonna talk about the other book that Mary also recommended and was one of her all-time favorite standalone romances, and that's Sicko by Almo Jones. I wouldn't call this a romance, because, again, like I said before, a romance has to have a happily ever after, which I guess it does, but it also has to be the main focus of the book. This book, 100%, huge trigger warning for sexual assault, rape, human trafficking, abuse. This book is super disturbed and upsetting, and I have an issue with it because in the beginning, the author's note, she says, I'm not doing this for the shock factor, or the, you know, to shock people, that I just had to tell this story. And I'm just like, I don't believe you. Like, this, to me, this is for the shock value. She put as much shocking things in this book in order to shock you. So I don't know where I land on it. I gave it a 2-star because it's not a romance to me, and I don't like to read about that kind of stuff. And, it was dark and I wanted that drama, but I also want the happy ending. And while there was a happy ending, like, this book hurt my stomach the entire time. That's not the kind of dark romance that I'm looking for. Basically, this girl is orphaned as a baby, and she's dropped on this person's doorstep, and they kind of take her in, and she ends up falling in love with her foster brother. But he ends up leaving, and she ends up getting raped by someone that I was not shocked at all. Like, I don't know if it was her intention for it to be shocking, but I was just like, I knew it the entire time who that was. So that part was not shocking to me at all. Nothing really was shocking to me about this book. I felt like it was torture porn. She wanted to make this girl's life hell, as well as every other girl in this book, and she did it. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Read it at your own risk. I don't recommend. A little bit later, but I am here back to finish wrapping up my 30 books in 30 days June wrap up. Sorry about the difference in lighting. There was nothing I could do about it. So we'll continue with the romance. I guess I'll try to finish out the romance and then talk about the graphic novels and everything else. Okay, so at the beginning of the month, I did read another book. Who recommended this one? This one I don't remember the recommendation from, but I read it, and I think it was a dark romance recommendation, and it is a mafia romance. I can't say that I've read a mafia romance before. I read Sweet Temptation by Cora Riley. Like I said, it's a mafia romance. It is about a girl who, and this one is a little creepy. I'm gonna say that I was a little uncomfortable about the whole age gap thing. So basically, this guy, his wife is found to have committed suicide in the beginning, and then it's been like 3-ish months or something, and him being like high up in the mafia in whatever city, I don't remember if it's like the mob boss, I don't remember who, but they come to him and they're like, you need to remarry now. Someone needs to take care of your kids because you can't do it. You've got a mafia to run. So they try to find him a suitable wife, and it happens to be our main character. And the thing is, though, that they have to wait until she's 18 because she's 17 and he's like 38? Maybe, no, I think he might be early to mid-30s. I don't remember. But I just thought it was kind of creepy that they were like, we have to wait until she's 18 for you to marry her. I was just like, that whole part of it, I don't know, just like the vibe of that was kind of weird to me, I'm not gonna lie. I can't say I really loved this one. I gave it 3 stars. It was just fine. It's basically about this girl who is arranged into a marriage, and she basically has to learn how to become a mother and a wife at the same time. It was cute in that way. I did like how she, you know, bonded with the kids and like tried to bond with this mafia person, boss, whatever, and try to make them into a family. I thought that was cute, but other than that, it was just meh. And then I think the last romance, so the last romance I read was a novella by L.J. Shen. This was from the Sinners of Saint series. The first book, there was a 0.5 that it was a novella. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll read that. And it was kind of like completely unrealistic kind of student-teacher romance that was just kind of fun, and it was, I would say it was a little on the darker side. I think the first book is called Vicious, and I think that's what they call a bully romance, which is whatever, it's its own thing, okay? I read the first one, Defy. Like my Goodreads review says, kind of creepy, kind of cheesy, still fun. And now I'll quickly try to go through all of the graphic novels that I read. Some good ones, some mediocre ones, some that I needed more from. Let's start with the best of the best. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is the graphic novelization of the novel. I didn't know that before I read it, so I didn't know that this was actually a novel first, but this is a graphic novel, and I absolutely loved this book. The premise of the story is that our main character is playing basketball with one of his friends just in like the neighborhood basketball court, and his brother shows up with their friends, and then a shooting takes place and his brother is killed. And the younger brother, the main character, he believes he knows who killed him, who did the drive-by shooting. And so he is on his way after this, after he's gone home and talked to his mother, he's on his way to go and exact revenge for his brother and kill the person who killed him. And the story takes place completely in his apartment building. He is going down the elevator and on his way out, and so each floor of the elevator he meets a ghost from his past, and they kind of like talk about their lives, what went wrong, why they died, and things like that. And of course the last person he meets is his brother. This was so moving. I really enjoyed the story, the way that it was told. It was just so interesting to see like the little snippets of each person's life, and how like they're not telling him not to go and kill this person in revenge, but that is the message they're trying to show him. Like, this is what happened in my life. Not to say like don't do it, just like this is the consequence of what you're about to do. Think about that, you know? Also, I have to say that the artwork in this is some of the best artwork that I've seen in a graphic novel in so long. I want to say it's watercolor, but I'm not an artist, so don't quote me on that. Yes, ink and watercolor. So it's all watercolor. It's absolutely gorgeous. I cannot like recommend this book enough. It was so good. This might be one of my favorite graphic novels of the year. Next, I read, these are not in any particular order, Witchlight by Jesse Zabarski. This is a charming graphic novel about this person who is a witch. This person, Lelik, is a witch, and basically they kidnap Sandra, who is a merchant's daughter, I would guess. And it's because Sandra, in the beginning of the book, shows that she can fight, and so Lelik is like, kidnaps her and is like, I want you to show me how to fight, and they end up kind of forming this bond, this friendship about just being with one another in whatever format they can be, you know, as a fighting partner, as a business partner, kind of, as a friend. It's just really sweet. And the very end of it was just so heartbreaking. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a short story that just spanned a lot of different, like a very like slow moving friendship, and I just really enjoyed it. I really like the artwork too. Definitely very unique. And I just like, I thought it was a good book. I highly recommend it. Next, I read Little Girls, and this is by Nicholas Affleje and Sarah Delane. This is a book that takes place in Ethiopia, and it's about two girls who, again, they just form a friendship over this kind of rumor, or like like urban legend kind of folktale that's happening in the town that they live in, about these hyenas. And it's interesting because it like incorporates some Ethiopian folktale in it, and I thought that was really interesting. However, I felt like it was missing a whole bunch of stuff. Like when they took this book to the editor was just like, take that out and that out and that out, and didn't try to fix anything. They're just like, and just put it together and here's what you've got. So I feel like it was kind of choppy, and I didn't love that. And the artwork isn't my favorite. I just didn't really connect with it, but I will say that the like folktale part of it was really interesting. I mean, I will also say it's a little creepy. And then I also read Breakwater by Katrina Chapman. This book was kind of disappointing just in the fact that the description on the back does not summarize this book at all. So it says, Chris finds a new friend, then has to decide if she has room in her life for one. A loner and an introvert, Chris has drifted through her job in the cinema for many years. When Dan joins, he gradually becomes a part of her life, but as they grow closer, she must decide if the solitary life she's built is the one she's actually most suited to after all. So from that, I was kind of like getting some convenience store woman vibes, and definitely that was not this. This is not actually about her deciding whether she wants to be like a loner. That's not what this book is at all. Like, she seems to me that she likes the people that she, you know, meets in this, and that she enjoys hanging out with them, and she's okay with forming this friendship. She has no reservations about being a loner. It's more about the actual friend that she makes and him, and how she plays into his story. And so that's kind of why I was disappointed in this book, because that's not what this is about, you know? So I felt like it was very misleading. But I did like the part of the story because she finds out that her new friend has some mental health issues, and how she responded in a way that she felt like was the only way that she could. And I feel like that's something that we don't really see in media, you know? I mean, I didn't really like it, but it was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars, I want to say. The artwork was just okay, though I do really love the cover. Some other graphic novels I read. I did read Joe, a graphic novel by Kathleen Gross. This is a retelling, like a middle school retelling of Little Women. I thought it was fun. It's about Joe, obviously, who joins the school newspaper, and she's struggling to find what she wants to write about. Also, like, how she can write about like mundane things in a way that she really enjoys. And then she kind of develops feelings for another girl who's on the newspaper club, and so it's kind of just about her discovering who she is and how she wants to write, and it was short and sweet. And then the last 2 graphic novels that I read, the first one, Girl Town by Carolyn Nowack, was really interesting. It's kind of just like a bunch of different short stories in graphic novel form, which I think is super fun. Some of them are really interesting. Some of them were kind of less interesting. There was one in there that I thought was super confusing, and I was like, I don't understand the purpose of that or anything about that story. But the other ones I really liked. Some of them do take on a kind of science fiction tone, and they're all just about women in different phases of life. There's one about a woman who has this really bad breakup, and she buys herself a companion robot, and I thought that one was really cute. What else? That is the one that sticks out most in my mind. But overall, I thought it was fun. There's ones that are about friendship, ones that are about romance, and I just really liked it. And then I also read Giant Days Volume 1. This is by John Allison and Lissa Trayman. This follows 3 friends and their college roommates, Susan, Esther, and Daisy, and they all have very different personalities. And I think it's kind of just like a slice of life kind of college graphic novel series. I know a lot of the reviews on Goodreads were a lot about people saying how they felt like there was no direction in these books, in the first one, and I thought, like, I mean, yes, but it didn't bother me. I thought it was really, I really liked it. It kind of almost just reminded me a little bit of Check Please, which is another like college age graphic novel series. But I think it's really interesting. I think we're gonna just have a good time following these girls as they form like a stronger friendship and as they form other relationships out in the world. And I'm gonna keep reading it for sure. And I also read Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. And this is a collection, it's from a collection, it's called Forward, and I think the person who like started it was Blake Crouch. So this one is about this scientist, explorer, I don't know what he's supposed to be, who goes back to Earth to find this bacteria or microbe or something that's going to help their race continue to survive. And we find out like this is something that's happened after Earth was found to be uninhabitable, and so humans left Earth and then have since evolved into different type of humans. And they go back to Earth, this person and their computer consciousness, I don't know what you want to call him, but it's basically this computer that's like narrating. He's like who we hear the most throughout the book, who is like narrating to this person about what he's seeing and what, I should say they, because I don't think they ever give a gender, but what they're seeing and what they are experiencing and talking about Earth. It was interesting. We meet some like actual Earthlings, and I thought that was really interesting. I felt like it was being a little preachy at times. I think the main issue I had with this is the fact I was listening to the audiobook with Kindle Unlimited, and the like narrator, computer voice, whatever, is like super angry the whole time, and that was not pleasant to listen to. So, very interesting. I don't know that I'm gonna listen to the other ones in the series. This one is the only one that I've really heard good things about. I haven't heard anything about the other ones, so we'll see. It was just fine. And then the last book, which I don't know why this is the book that I'm most proud of finishing, because it took me way too long to read this book. But I finally finished it. It's nowhere near like the longest book that I read this month, but finally did it. I finally finished Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And oh boy, I don't know how I feel about this book. I don't know that I've given it a star rating yet. If I had to give it a rating, I guess I'd give it a 4. And just because it's well written, I can see that it is a well written book and that it has merit to it, but it was very hard for me to stomach. Not that this book is gross or it's not a horror novel, it's just so freaking lonely. So Piranesi is our main character, and he is in this maze, which he's calling the house. It's a labyrinth, and it's basically like journal entries chronicling his life in this house, and who he comes in contact, like just his life. And we meet another character that he calls the Other, and he learns very close to the end of the book about the Other, and why they're both in the labyrinth. And it's so upsetting, and it's meant to be upsetting. And then the very end of the book, where you find, you learn more about Piranesi and his life, and his, like, the ending is just, like, it's so heartbreaking. It's really hard to talk about this book without spoiling it. Because, like, in the very beginning, Piranesi is very naive. I wouldn't call him ignorant, though he is, but it's not by any fault of his own. He sees things as they are and believes that is the only way that he's seen things, and that's how things are in the world, and that's the only world, that's the only place. And so he takes things at face value for what they are. And it was really hard for me to get through the very beginning because it was so abstract and so just mundane that I was just like, I don't care. Once you get more into it and you learn more about the other and just the house, I suppose, it gets more interesting, but I felt like she took a very like scientific approach to it without using like scientific like jargon. So like even though she's not using that jargon, it still was a little confusing at times and kind of just like, it almost felt pretentious to me at times, but I still find the merit in this book. It's a book that made me uncomfortable and something that will stick with me, I think, forever. Not that it is a book that is like largely an uncomfortable book. Like there's nothing super violent in this book or anything really gross or anything like really that's just like really like that makes your skin crawl or anything. It's not anything so intense as that, but it's still just like it got to me. And am I happy that I read this book? I cannot say that I am. So yeah, I don't know if that means anything to you. I do know that this book, or that someone mentioned to me that this book is up for the Women's Fiction Award this year, which I don't know what the qualifications for that award is. I also don't know what Susanna Clarke's intention was with writing this book. I don't know what her purpose was. Like, I don't know. And that doesn't mean it's a bad book. It's just like a book that does not have any impact on me. Besides make me super uncomfortable and just make me really freaking sad. So if I had to give it a rating, I'd give it 4 stars because it made me feel, even if I didn't like those emotions, and it was well written. And I'm pretty sure that was all 30 of the books that I read in June. I could be missing a book, I don't know, and if I am, I'll try to put them all in the description box, but there you go, there you have it. Those are the books that I read in June. This was obviously a very productive reading month. It was super fun. Obviously you can tell that the majority of the books that I read in June were romance, because I was just like in need of dark romance for the drama, but also just books that I could depend on for what I wanted in that time, which is like the predictability of characters meeting and falling in love, because that's what makes me happy, you know? Not all books. I get that like some people don't read solely to make them happy, which is fine. That's your life. I don't care what you do in your spare time. But like this book obviously did not make me happy, so that's why it took me forever to read it. But anyway, those are the books that I read. I hope you had a wonderful reading month. Let me know what you read in June, what your favorite book was. If you've read anything really fantastic lately, let me know. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in a new video soon.